Hello, everyone. I'm Lauren Elkin. I'm a knitwear designer. I live in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region. And this is a knit tip on how to work an integrated icord edging. I use integrated icord edgings a lot on my projects, particularly on my scarves and shawls. So the first thing that I'm going to do in this video is show you how to work one, and I'm going to show you how to work an integrated icord edging non-elastic style, and then I will teach you how to add in a little bit more yarn to it if you need your icord edging to have a little bit of stretch so that it'll block out without distorting the row gauge of your knitting. So let's jump right in and I'll show you how to do that. Down on my swatch right here, I have some stockinette stitch, which means I'm knitting on right side rows and purling on wrong side rows. And you can see on the edge that I have this tidy little edge right here. And that is worked by slipping both the first two and last two stitches on wrong side rows. So I'm kind of part way through a right side row here. So I'm just going to finish this right side row, and then I'm going to show you how to work the wrong side row where you are working that integrated icord edging. So I've just knit to the end right there, and I'm going to turn my work, and I'm on a wrong side row, and then I'm going to slip my first two stitches purl-wise without working them onto the right-hand needle. And then I'm going to go ahead and purl across all of those stitches until I get to the last two stitches. And then when I get to those two stitches, I am going to slip those last two stitches. And now that is the integrated icord edging. So when I go to work the next right side row, my yarn just comes across the back of those two stitches and I will begin to knit. Now that is very tidy. You can work an integrated icord edging with more than two stitches. You can work it with 3 stitches. When you work it with 4 stitches, it really does start to make your edge too tight. So I suggest working it with 2 or 3 stitches. But what I want to show you now is if you are working something with lace or stockinette stitch where your gauge is quite open, you might find that your icord edging is tightening things up and making it so that you can't block out your project. And what you can do in that case is add in some extra yarn. And the way that I do that, I'm just backing up so I can show you. The way that I do that is when I get to the second to last stitch on the right side row, I wrap my yarn twice around my needle, and then I knit the last stitch regularly. And you'll see that you'll end up having this double wrap right here on the second to last stitch. Now, when I go to turn my work, I am going to slip those first 2 stitches, dropping that extra wrap. And what that does is elongate that stitch. So when you continue to work across, that extra yarn kind of gets, I'll use a big word here, it gets amortized into those edge stitches and loosens things up a bit so that your edge can block out. If you are wanting to use this on both sides of your integrated icord edging, I would do it on the second stitch and the second to last stitch, and then you'll just drop that extra wrap. The thing I find that people run into sometimes is they start to count that extra wrap as a stitch. You don't count it as a stitch because you are dropping it. If you're working this, I would work those extra wraps every other right side row. So it'll be a 4-row repeat to create that elongated integrated icord edging. Let me show you this on 2 different projects just so you can see what it looks like on a finished project, because I think that that really helps. So if you look down on here, this is one of my patterns, reversible undulating waves. And when I originally designed this pattern, I just had a garter stitch edge and it was really, really boring. So I wanted to use an integrated icord edging, and this is a 3-stitch integrated icord edging. And when I started working it, I found that the lace wouldn't block out because the edging was getting so tight. So what I did on this is that second stitch and the second to last stitch, stitch on every other right side row, I wrapped my yarn twice around the needle. And what that did is elongate the edge and made it so that it could block out beautifully so that the lace could really open up and lay flat. This is another project that's kind of interesting to show this to you on. This is Delight Scarf. And you'll see that Delight Scarf down here is worked in garter stitch. And then up here is worked in stockinette stitch. So I found in the garter stitch that there's no reason to work those extra wraps because your row gauge is much denser when you're working garter stitch. Garter stitch is when you're knitting every row. When I got up to the stockinette stitch section right here, I found that if I wasn't working an elongated stitch at the edge every other right side row, that this section was kind of pulling in and getting all tight at the edge of the scarf. So here I worked that elongated edge every other right side row, and it made it so that my edge was behaving the same throughout the entire shawl instead of changing. So I use this often in different projects. If you have any questions about this because you're wanting to incorporate it into a project that you're working on, please do feel free to ask that question below. I'll be linking to this video in any patterns that I have that use this technique to help kind of illustrate it. I find that a video sometimes helps make something that seems a little complicated in a pattern just kind of click and make sense just like that. So ask questions. Please subscribe to my channel. Feel free to follow me, hit the like, do all the things, share this with your knitting friends. I absolutely adore knitting. I love sharing my tips and tricks with you, and I love hearing yours. Happy knitting.